Every so often, a discovery doesn't just change history, it threatens to rewrite it. Imagine finding a computer built over 2,000 years ago, an ancient machine so advanced it predicts eclipses, tracks the planets, and maps the heavens with a precision modern science didn't match until the 20th century. This isn't science fiction, this is 100% real, and it begins in 1900 when Greek sponge divers off the island of Antikythera pulled up a strange lump of bronze from a Roman shipwreck. At first, it looked like a rock, forgotten, ignored. But decades later, when scientists finally scanned inside, they found gears, dozens of them, hidden in a system of engineering that absolutely should not exist in the ancient world. Today, we call it the Antikythera Mechanism. Some call it the world's first computer. Others call it a forbidden artifact, proof of lost civilizations, or maybe something not even made entirely by human hands. So here's the question. Was this truly the genius of ancient Greece, or evidence of technology we were never meant to find? Like all the best unexplained mysteries, this one kicks off with a bit of luck and a whole lot of terror. It's the spring of 1900, and a team of sponge divers led by Captain Demetrius Kontos is stuck near Antikythera, waiting for a storm to pass. To kill time, they decide to dive. A young diver named Elias Stadiatis, wearing the era's clunky canvas suit and that heavy copper helmet, goes down first. A few minutes later, he signals frantically to be hauled back up. He hits the surface, his eyes wild with terror, babbling about a horrifying sight on the sea floor. The scene of high strangeness scattered around the rocks. The captain, Demetrius Kontos, figured the diver was suffering from nitrogen narcosis, the rapture of the deep, which can cause powerful hallucinations. So Kontos decided to dive himself to see what was really down there. And what he found, it wasn't a nightmare. It was a miracle. The rotting corpses weren't bodies at all. They were a breathtaking collection of bronze and marble statues from an ancient civilization, all twisted and stained green after centuries underwater. They had just stumbled upon the richest ancient shipwreck ever found. Kontos knew this discovery was huge, so he contacted the Greek authorities, and just like that, the world's first major underwater archaeological dig was underway. For the next year, working with the Greek Navy, the divers attempted a dangerous recovery mission. The conditions were absolutely awful and the wreck was on a steep, unstable slope, so the dive technology at the time was so primitive, it was practically a death sentence. The mission tragically killed one diver, unfortunately, and left two others paralyzed for life from decompression sickness. But the treasures they brought up were legendary. We're not talking about everyday treasures here. We're talking about marble sculptures, massive bronze statues, like the famous Antikythera youth, ornate glassware. There was jewelry and there was coins, and somewhere in all that priceless history, they pulled up that one unassuming, lumpy object, a true mystery from the deep. It was brought to the surface in July 1901 and shipped to the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. There, surrounded by resurrected masterpieces, the corroded lump of bronze and wood sat completely unnoticed. It was just one of 82 fragments, right? A chaotic mess of metal that held its ancient secrets tight, waiting for someone to look past the ugly exterior and see the impossible machine hiding inside. For years, it was just an ugly rock pulled from an ancient shipwreck, ignored in a museum. But one day, an archaeologist noticed it had cracked open, so he looked inside, and what he saw should not have existed. Perfectly formed geometric teeth of a gear wheel. He realized that this was no rock, it was a machine. But his discovery was so impossible for the time, so far ahead of the history books, that when he suggested what it was, other experts were certain he was wrong. For 2 years after its discovery, this thing we now call the Antikythera Mechanism was a historical footnote. That day of revelation came on May the 17th, 1902. An archaeologist named Valerios Stais was looking over the finds when he noticed the lump had cracked open and saw the glint of metal inside. Stais suggested it might be some kind of astronomical clock. For this, he was totally left out of the room. The experts were certain a machine this complex couldn't possibly be ancient. It had to be a more modern artifact that just fell on the wreck site, like a complete coincidence. The idea that the ancient Greeks were making precision engineered bronze gears was seen as completely ridiculous at the time, a piece of forbidden history that just didn't fit the narrative. Their technology was supposed to be simple tools and war machines, not whatever this was. Now, for decades, the mechanism was just a weird curiosity, just sat there. It was just a puzzle too inconvenient for mainstream history. But it obsessed a few brilliant minds. The first brilliant mind was a German philologist named Albert Rehm, correctly identified it as an astronomical calculator. But the mechanism's true champion wouldn't appear for another generation. His name was Derek J. de Solla Price, a science historian at Yale. Now, he first saw the device in 1951, and it became an obsession that would actually consume him for about 30 years. Price knew the skepticism wasn't based on evidence. It was based on failure of imagination, and he made it his life's work to decode this ancient computer. In the early 1970s, he used X-rays and gamma rays to finally peek inside the corroded fragments. What he saw was a complete game changer. It confirmed a highly complex system of gear trains. In his famous 1974 article, Gears from the Greeks, Price laid out his shocking conclusion. This wasn't just a clock. It was an ancient analog computer. He famously compared the discovery to finding a jet engine in King Tut's tomb, the ultimate out-of-place artifact, a piece of technology so advanced it defied everything we knew. Price painstakingly counted gear teeth, figuring out it was a calendar computer that could track the sun and the moon. His work was absolutely incredible, but he was limited by the technology of his time. He had cracked the door open, but the full mind-bending truth of what this lost technology could do was still locked away. The decades of silence were over, but the biggest ancient secrets were yet to be revealed. Now, if you're enjoying this investigation so far, now's the perfect time to hit subscribe or follow so you don't miss the next file from the Dark Vault. And if you're listening on the podcast, quick follow, review helps people join us around the campfire. All right, let's get back to the mystery. The 21st century brought technologies that Derek Price could only have dreamed of. His work laid the groundwork, but to really understand this unexplained mystery, scientists needed to see it in 3D without actually destroying it. And that job fell to the Antikythera Mechanism Research Project, or AMRP, which is a global team of experts. They had a secret weapon, a custom-built 8-ton X-ray machine. In 2005, they hauled this absolute beast to the museum in Athens, and using high-resolution X-ray tomography, they created a detailed digital model of the mechanism's guts. For the first time, researchers could virtually pull the device apart, gear by gear. The results were stunning. The scans revealed a hidden world of at least 37 interlocking bronze gears. They could finally see the breathtaking complexity that was hidden by the corrosion. They even found thousands of characters of faint inscriptions. Basically, it was a user manual from a lost civilization that had been etched into the casing. It was almost like it was the ancient computer, and it was finally giving up its source code to us. With this new data, a crystal clear picture emerged. This was a hand-cranked cosmos in a box. You would turn a small handle, now lost, and the whole system of gears would whir to life. As you turned it, pointers on the front and back would track a huge amount of astronomical data. The front display showed the heavens. It had a dial for the 365-day Egyptian calendar and another one for the zodiac. One pointer showed the sun's position, a second showed the moon's. But this was no simple moon tracker. It was driven by a brilliant system of epicyclic gears, smaller gears riding on larger ones, to model the moon's irregular orbit. It actually sped up and slowed down to mimic the moon's real movement too, which is incredible. This was a complex theory we didn't even think had been modeled mechanically for another 1,000 years. A little half-silver, half-black ball on the pointer even rotated to show the moon's phase. It's unbelievable. Now, the back of this device was just as wild as the front. It had two large spiral dials. The top one tracked the 19-year metonic cycle. The bottom dial was a Saros dial, and that's used to help predict eclipses. Inscriptions could tell you the month, day, and likely time of a solar and lunar eclipse. It even contained what many experts believe is a differential, which is a complex gear system we thought was actually invented in the 16th century. A true piece of forbidden technology. The revelation was complete. This just wasn't an artifact. It was a complete paradigm shift. So, we have an ancient Greek analog computer that can model the cosmos. That alone makes it the most advanced piece of tech from the ancient world. But as researchers deciphered those tiny inscriptions, they found something that shifted the device from a scientific instrument to something much more profound. Near the top dial, they found a smaller secondary dial. As they translated the Greek letters, a pattern emerged. They saw words like Nemea for the Nemean Games, then Isthmia, Pythia, and the most famous name of all, Olympia. This ancient computer had a dial that tracked the 4-year cycle of the Pan-Hellenic Games, including the Olympics. This was an electrifying discovery. This proved that the machine wasn't just for some isolated astronomer. This machine connected the cycles of the heavens with the cycles of Greek culture. You could use it to find out when the next Olympic Games were. It was a mechanical model that linked the divine order of the cosmos to the human order on Earth. And that is why the Antikythera Mechanism is such a huge deal. Before this, our image of Greek tech was impressive, but it was actually quite limited. We knew about their temples and their warships, their philosophy and democracy, but high-precision, miniaturized, complex mechanical engineering, we all thought that chapter of forbidden history didn't start until the clockmakers of the 14th century Europe. The mechanism proves that whole idea is wrong. It shows a sophisticated tradition of mechanical engineering in the Hellenistic world that has been almost completely lost. The level of craftsmanship and genius design are without equal for more than a millennium. The Antikythera Mechanism is the quintessential out-of-place artifact, not because it's alien, but because it's so far ahead of its time, it feels like it dropped in from the future. It suggests the Greek genius was matched by a technical ingenuity we're now only grasping. This single device may be the last remnant of a lost lineage of high technology, and it makes you wonder, if this is the one that survived, what other forbidden technology did they actually build? What other marvels from lost civilizations are still out there that we just haven't discovered? This single device proves the ancient Greeks had technology we thought was impossible. So, where did it go? How could the knowledge to build an ancient computer just vanish for over 1,000 years? Was this branch of forgotten knowledge simply lost to fires and the fall of empires? Or was it suppressed? Was it evidence of an advanced civilization wiped out by a cataclysm, perhaps? It's a question that haunts historians and explorers to this day. For every secret this mechanism gives up, it asks a dozen more questions. We know this branch of forgotten knowledge existed, but the who, how, and why are still hotly debated. First, who could have made this thing? The shipwreck is dated to around 70 to 60 BC, but the mechanism seems older. Inscriptions point to a Corinthian origin, maybe from Sicily. That name makes you think of one of the greatest minds in history, Archimedes of Syracuse. The Roman writer Cicero claimed he saw two similar machines built by Archimedes. The timeline is a little off, but it's still plausible it was based on his work. Another theory points to the island of Rhodes, home to the astronomer Hipparchus, who first described the very lunar anomalies the mechanism models so perfectly. Some even whisper of more esoteric origins, and this wasn't the work of one man either, but the product of a secret society guarding ancient knowledge. The truth is, we just may never know where it was made and who it was made by, but that leads to the biggest, the most haunting question of all. How could this knowledge just disappear? The answer is likely a perfect storm of disaster and cultural shifts. This device was made of expensive bronze, and that would have been incredibly rare back in the day. As the Roman Empire rose, specialized knowledge may have faded. The great libraries, like the one in Alexandria, that might have held the blueprints were lost to fire and neglect, breaking that chain of knowledge. And of course, there are the more fringe theories. Was this knowledge deliberately suppressed? Some researchers of ancient alien theory even speculate perhaps it wasn't human knowledge at all. And when that Roman ship went down, it wasn't just treasure that was lost either. It was one of maybe only a handful of examples of this lost technology. Its secrets dissolved into the sea. Sci-fi legend Arthur C. Clarke actually once speculated that if this technology hadn't been lost, we wouldn't just be on the moon, we'd have reached the stars by now. The story of the Antikythera Mechanism is a journey from a stormy sea to a dusty museum shelf and into the heart of a scientific revolution. It's gone from a worthless lump of corrosion to being reborn as a window into a world far more advanced than we ever give it credit for. The mechanism is more than an old computer. It's a profound lesson that history isn't a straight line of progress. It's a path with incredible peaks of forgotten knowledge. It's a humbling reminder that we are still piecing together our own past, and that there are unexplained mysteries we have yet to find. It forces you to also look at the ancient world with new eyes, and it leaves us with the one lingering question, as deep as the sea that kept its secrets for so long. What other marvels, what other chapters of forbidden history are still waiting in the depths, ready to change everything we think we know? And that brings us to the end of tonight's case. But here's the thing. The mystery, as always, doesn't end here. So what do you guys think? Was the Antikythera Mechanism the lost genius of ancient Greece? Or is it proof of a forgotten civilization? Maybe even technology not of this earth? Drop your theory in the comments. I'll be featuring some of the best in future episodes. And if you enjoyed this investigation, make sure you hit subscribe and follow, because this is just one file from the Dark Vault. The next mystery, as always again, is waiting, and trust me, you won't want to miss that one either. And for those of you listening on the podcast, thanks for joining us around the campfire again. Until next time, keep searching for the truth.